The transport ships descended through the morning sky like dark clouds. Marcus Chen watched them from the tree line, his stomach tight with fear. He had seen ships like these before during his years in the Marines, but never this many at once. Never coming for his home. New Edmonton had been a peaceful colony for 12 years. 50,000 people lived here, farming the rich soil and building new lives far from Earth's crowded cities. Marcus had retired here 3 years ago, thinking his fighting days were over. He wanted to teach survival skills to young colonists and enjoy the quiet life. That dream died the moment the Krell arrived. The aliens came without warning. Their first broadcast was simple and terrifying. They claimed New Edmonton as a hunting preserve. The humans here were now prey. The Krell government had purchased the rights to this world, and their laws said they could do whatever they wanted with it. No one from Earth or the other colonies could stop them. The human navy was too far away, too weak, too scattered. Marcus remembered the panic in the streets. People tried to run to their ships, but the Krell disabled everything that could fly. They destroyed the communication arrays so no one could call for help. Then they herded everyone out of the cities and into the wilderness. The Krell wanted their prey scattered, afraid, and alone. Now Marcus crouched in the mud with 30 other people, watching the hunters arrive. The Krell were massive creatures, nearly 9 feet tall with bodies covered in thick armor like skin. They moved on 2 legs like humans but were built like tanks. Their heads were wide and flat with 4 eyes that could see heat. Their mouths held rows of sharp teeth that could crush bone. "They're setting up camps," whispered Dr. Sarah Okonkwo beside him. She was the colony's lead scientist, and Marcus had found her group 3 days ago. Sarah had been studying the Krell broadcasts, trying to understand them. "They're treating this like a vacation, like we're animals in a zoo." Marcus clenched his fists. He had fought in 2 wars before retiring. He had seen terrible things and done worse to survive. But he had never felt this kind of anger before. These aliens saw humans as toys, as entertainment. They paid huge amounts of money for the chance to hunt people through the woods. "How many are there?" asked Tom Rodriguez, a farmer who still held his hunting rifle like it could protect him. "I count 15 ships," Sarah said. "Maybe 200 hunters. They'll come in waves. The rich ones pay more to hunt first." Marcus studied the Krell camps through his binoculars. The aliens had expensive equipment and weapons that glowed with strange energy. But they also had rules. Sarah had explained this after listening to their broadcasts. The Krell believed in honor. They wanted the hunt to be sporting, so they limited themselves. No orbital strikes, no automated weapons. They hunted with technology that was advanced but not overwhelming. It was meant to give humans a chance. "A small chance, but a chance. Listen to me," Marcus said, turning to the group. "We're going to survive this, but we need to be smart. These things are stronger and tougher than us. They have better weapons and can see in the dark. But they don't know this forest like we do. They don't know each other like we do. And they think we're weak." "We are weak," someone muttered. "Look at them." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We're human. We survived ice ages with stone tools. We crawled out of caves and built cities. We reached the stars. Our ancestors hunted animals 3 times their size and won. We can do this," Sarah nodded. "Marcus is right. I've been studying their behavior. The Krell are predators, but they're used to prey that runs. They expect us to scatter and hide. We need to organize. We need to turn their hunt against them." Over the next 2 days, Marcus and Sarah moved through the forest, finding other groups of survivors. They spread the word quietly. Stay hidden. Watch the Krell. Learn their patterns. Share information. Some people were too afraid to fight. Marcus didn't blame them. He told those people to go deeper into the forest to the caves Sarah knew about. Survival was the first goal, but others wanted to fight. Marcus found former soldiers, hunters, and angry people who refused to be prey. He gathered them and began to teach. They learned to move silently through the forest. They learned to mask their heat signatures by covering themselves in cold mud. They learned to set traps using materials from the forest. The first Krell hunt began on the 5th day. Marcus watched from a hidden position as a group of 4 hunters moved through the trees. They wore ceremonial armor decorated with trophies from other hunts. They carried weapons that hummed with power. They laughed and talked in their harsh language, clearly enjoying themselves. The Krell spread out, searching for human heat signatures. They found a trail and followed it eagerly. Marcus had helped make that trail. It led to an ambush point where 10 humans waited with primitive weapons in desperation. The ambush failed. The Krell were too fast, too strong. 2 humans died before the others could escape. But Marcus learned something important. The Krell could be surprised. They bled when cut. They could feel pain. They were not invincible. That night, Marcus and Sarah gathered their group. They mourned the dead but also planned. Sarah had collected data from watching the Krell. She showed Marcus her notes by firelight. They have patterns, she explained. They hunt during the day because their heat vision works better when the air is cooler. They prefer to track individuals rather than groups. They follow honor codes that make them predictable, and they underestimate us completely. Then we use that, Marcus said. We make them think we're running. We leave trails that lead to traps. We study every Krell we see and learn their weaknesses. A young woman named Lisa spoke up. What if we could get their weapons? Would that help? Marcus smiled grimly. That's exactly what we need to do. Take their equipment, learn their technology, turn it against them. Over the following weeks, the pattern continued. The Krell hunted and humans died. But slowly, carefully, the survivors began to learn. They discovered that Krell armor had weak points at the joints. They found that certain plants in the forest blocked heat signatures. They learned to communicate using signs and sounds that the Krell ignored. And then, on the 22nd day, something changed. A Krell hunter named Thraxul was tracking what he thought was an easy target. He was young for a Krell on his first official hunt. His family had paid enormous sums for this privilege. He expected to return home with trophies and honor. Instead, he found himself alone in a valley where his communicator stopped working. Strange sounds echoed around him. His heat vision showed nothing but cold spots. He turned in circles trying to understand what was happening. Then he saw them. Humans, dozens of them, rising from the ground where they had been buried under cold mud and leaves. They surrounded him with weapons made from sharpened metal and Krell equipment they had scavenged. They didn't attack. They just watched him with hard, angry eyes. Thraxul raised his weapon, but a human male stepped forward. He was smaller than Thraxul, covered in scars with eyes that had seen too much death. The human spoke in broken Krell language. Go back. Tell them we are not prey. We are not animals. We are human, and we will fight. Then the humans melted back into the forest, leaving Thraxul alive but shaking with a feeling he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, deep fear. The hunt had begun. But the Krell were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had not trapped prey in this forest. They had walked into a cage with something far more dangerous than they understood. Humans did not just survive. Humans adapted, and when humans were pushed to the edge, they pushed back harder than anyone expected. 3 weeks into the hunt, the first Krell hunter went missing. His name was Vektal, a mid-ranking noble who had bragged about killing 12 humans in his first week. He went into the northern forest sector with his hunting partner and never came back. The partner returned alone, confused and frightened, saying that Vektal had simply vanished while investigating a human shelter. The Krell huntmaster, a scarred veteran named Grathek, dismissed it as an accident. Perhaps Vektal fell into a ravine or was attacked by the local wildlife. New Edmonton had predators that could be dangerous even to Krell. The hunt continued. Then 2 more hunters disappeared. Then 4 more. Then an entire hunting party of 6. Marcus Chen sat in the hidden camp that had become the Resistance headquarters. Maps covered the walls of the cave, marked with Krell positions and movement patterns. Sarah Okonkwo worked at a makeshift laboratory, studying pieces of Krell equipment they had collected. Around them, 40 humans prepared weapons and planned operations. We got another one last night, reported Lisa Tanaka, who had become one of their best scouts. Big male hunting alone near the river. We used the pitfall trap, the one with the sharpened stakes at the bottom. His armor didn't help him. Marcus nodded but felt no satisfaction. Every dead Krell meant humans had survived another day, but it also meant they were becoming killers. He had seen what war did to people. He was watching it happen again. What did you do with the body? Sarah asked without looking up from her work. Left it in the open, stripped of weapons and equipment. Just like you said. We want them to find it, Sarah smiled coldly. Good. Fear is our best weapon right now. The Krell think they're apex predators. We need to make them question that. Over the past weeks, Sarah had become obsessed with understanding the Krell. She studied their biology, psychology, and culture. Every piece of equipment they captured, every body they found, taught her something new. And she had discovered important weaknesses. The Krell thermal vision was incredible, but it had limitations. Extreme heat or cold confused it. Certain electromagnetic frequencies disrupted it completely. The humans had learned to use these weaknesses, creating blind spots where they could move unseen. The Krell honor system was even more exploitable. They followed strict rules about hunting. They announced their presence before attacking. They fought one-on-one when possible. They took trophies and recorded their kills. These traditions made them predictable. Humans could set traps because they knew how Krell hunters would behave. "We intercepted another broadcast," Tom Rodriguez said, entering the cave with a Krell communication device. "They're arguing about what's happening. Some want to increase security. Others say admitting there's a problem would be shameful." Marcus took the device. He had learned basic Krell language from Sarah's teaching and could understand some of the transmission. What he heard made him smile. For the first time in weeks, the Krell were scared. They hid it behind anger and pride, but the fear was there. 12 hunters dead, 8 missing, and no one could explain how. The humans were supposed to be primitive prey, easy to track and kill. Instead, they had become ghosts in the forest, striking from nowhere and vanishing before the Krell could respond. "They're calling us shadow prey," Marcus translated. "They think we're using technology we shouldn't have." Sarah laughed bitterly. "We're using mud, leaves, and their own arrogance against them. They can't imagine that intelligence and creativity matter more than strength." The resistance had grown. Word spread through the forest using signals Marcus designed. Survivors who had been hiding came forward. Not everyone wanted to fight, and Marcus didn't force them. But enough people were angry, desperate, or brave enough to join. They now had teams operating across the entire preserve, sharing information and coordinating attacks. Marcus organized the fighters into small units, each with a specific role. Scouts tracked Krell movements. Trappers set elaborate ambushes using knowledge of the terrain. Scavengers collected equipment from dead hunters. Researchers like Sarah studied everything they learned and found new weaknesses to exploit. The tactics evolved quickly. Early ambushes had been desperate and costly. Now they were precise and deadly. Humans learned to attack from multiple directions, overwhelming the Krell's ability to track threats. They used captured weapons against their former owners. They started fires to mask heat signatures and create chaos. But the real power was psychological warfare. Sarah suggested they leave messages for the Krell. Using translation software from captured devices, they wrote warnings in the Krell language. "You are being hunted. We are watching you. Run." They left these messages carved into trees or written in Krell blood near bodies. The effect was dramatic. Krell hunters started moving in larger groups, obviously nervous. Some refused to hunt at night. Others demanded more security. The huntmaster sent angry broadcasts demanding they maintain honor and not show fear, but his words sounded hollow. Thraxzul, the young Krell who Marcus had spared, became a source of valuable intelligence. He told his fellow hunters about the encounter, describing how the humans had surrounded him with military precision. Other Krell dismissed his story as cowardice, but Thraxzul couldn't shake the memory of those cold human eyes watching him. He began to observe the hunts differently. He noticed things other Krell missed: human tracks that led into obvious traps, signs of organized resistance rather than panicked prey, evidence of planning and intelligence that shouldn't exist in primitive prey species. Thraxzul started keeping a private record of his observations. He watched as confident hunters went into the forest and never returned. He saw the fear growing in the camps hidden behind false bravado and ritual. He wondered if his people had made a terrible error. The turning point came during the 4th week. A prominent Krell noble named Zethral arrived with his son, eager to claim the glory of a successful hunt. They were famous hunters who had killed dangerous prey on a dozen worlds. They refused extra security, claiming it would dishonor their reputation. Marcus personally led the operation against them. 50 humans worked together. Using every tactic they had learned, they created false heat signatures to draw the Krell into a specific area. They used sound to confuse their hearing. They attacked from trees, from underground, from directions the Krell didn't expect. Zethral died fighting, taking 3 humans with him, but his son was captured alive. The young Krell, barely past adolescence, found himself tied and surrounded by the prey he had come to hunt. Marcus stood over him, speaking in halting Krell language. "We send message. Your people think we are animals. We show we are not. You go back. Tell them truth. Sarah approached with a medical kit. We're not going to hurt you more than we already have. But you need to understand something. Every Krell who comes here to hunt us will die or disappear. Your father died because he underestimated us. You're alive because we choose to let you live. That's power. That's control. We're not prey. We're human. They kept the young Krell for 2 days, making sure he saw their organization. He watched humans training, planning, and working together with purpose and intelligence. He saw the wall of trophies they had taken from Krell hunters. He heard the names of missing Krell and realized these humans knew exactly what had happened to each one. Then they released him near a Krell camp with a recorded message for the Huntmaster. Sarah had prepared it carefully, speaking in perfect formal Krell language. We are the humans of New Edmonton. You came to hunt us for sport. You treated us as prey, but we are not prey. We are survivors. We are warriors. We are the species that conquered our world not with strength or natural weapons, but with our minds and our refusal to surrender. Every hunter you send into this forest will face the same choice, leave or die. We do not want this war, but we will not lose it. The hunt is over. We are hunting you now. The message caused chaos in the Krell camps. Some hunters wanted to leave immediately. Others demanded revenge. The Huntmaster Grathek found himself losing control of the situation. He sent urgent messages to the Krell government, but they were slow to respond, unsure how to handle the embarrassing situation. Meanwhile, humans continued their campaign. They didn't just survive anymore. They dominated. Krell hunters who ventured out alone died. Groups found themselves constantly harassed, unable to rest or hunt effectively. The forest that was supposed to be a playground became a nightmare. Thraxul watched it all and felt his worldview crumbling. The Krell were supposed to be superior. They were the hunters, the strong, the apex predators of the galaxy. But here they were being systematically destroyed by creatures they considered primitive. He began to wonder, what if the Krell had been wrong about everything? The count reached 37 missing or dead Krell hunters when the galactic media started paying attention. What began as an exclusive sport hunting event had transformed into a disaster that the Krell government could no longer hide. Ships from other species began arriving at the edge of the system, watching and recording everything. Marcus stood on a ridge overlooking the main Krell camp. 6 weeks had passed since the hunt began. The aliens were no longer spreading out to hunt. They stayed close to their fortified positions, venturing out only in large armed groups. The hunters had become the hunted, and everyone knew it. They're sending reinforcements, Sarah said, studying data from a captured Krell computer tablet. 3 ships with military-grade equipment. They're abandoning the honor rules. This is about to become a real war. Marcus felt the weight of that statement. The resistance had won against hunters following sporting rules. Military Krell would be different. They would use overwhelming force, automated weapons, and coordinated tactics. The humans had succeeded through guerrilla warfare and exploitation of Krell traditions, but those advantages were about to disappear. Then we need to change the game completely, Marcus said. We've been reacting to them. It's time to take the initiative. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and Sarah developed a bold plan. They would stop hiding and go on the offensive. Not just ambushing hunters in the forest, but striking at the heart of Krell operations. They would attack the command center in orbit. That's insane, Tom Rodriguez said when they presented the idea. We barely have working spacecraft. They have a military vessel with shields and weapons. They also think we're trapped on the ground, Sarah countered. They've stopped watching their orbital approaches because prey doesn't attack upward. We have 3 captured Krell shuttles. We know their security codes. We can reach them. Lisa Tanaka nodded slowly. And if we broadcast the attack across the galaxy, if we show humans boarding a Krell command ship, it destroys their reputation forever. Other species will see that these apex predators can be beaten. The plan was desperate, but everything about their situation was desperate. Marcus selected 20 volunteers for the orbital assault team. All were former military or had technical skills. All understood they might not come back. Meanwhile, on the ground, the resistance prepared for the Krell military response. They abandoned the forest camps and moved to underground networks of caves that Sarah's geological surveys had mapped. They stockpiled captured weapons and supplies. They prepared for a siege. Thraxul found himself torn between 2 worlds. He had not participated in hunts since his encounter with Marcus. Other Krell mocked him as a coward. But Thraxul no longer cared about their opinions. He spent his time observing and thinking, trying to understand what had gone so wrong. When the military reinforcements arrived, Thraxul watched the commander, War Master Crothan, address the hunters. Crothan was a legend among the Krell, a veteran of a dozen campaigns. He was scarred, ruthless, and entirely without mercy. "The honor hunt is over," Crothan announced in his deep, harsh voice. "These humans have proven they are not simple prey. They are enemy combatants. We will treat them as such. We will use every weapon at our disposal. We will purge this forest systematically. No more games. No more traditions. Only total victory." The hunters cheered, relieved that someone was finally taking the situation seriously. But Thraxul felt a chill. He had studied human military history using the colony's captured databases. He knew what humans did when faced with total war. They didn't surrender. They escalated. The human orbital assault began during the night cycle, when Krell attention was focused on ground operations. 3 stolen shuttles launched from hidden positions, using the terrain to mask their signatures until they were beyond effective sensor range. They flew in tight formation, transmitting captured security codes. Marcus piloted the lead shuttle, his hands steady despite the fear coursing through him. Beside him, Sarah monitored their approach, hacking into Krell communication networks. Behind them, 18 volunteers checked their weapons and prepared for close combat. "We're being scanned," Sarah reported. "Security protocols running. They're checking our codes," seconds stretched like hours. If the codes failed, defense systems would destroy them instantly. But the codes held. The shuttles were waved through, cleared to dock at the command ship's lower hangar. "They bought it," Marcus breathed. "Everyone stay calm. We dock normally. We walk in like we belong there. Then we move fast." The hangar was nearly empty. Most of the command ship's crew was focused on managing ground operations. The few Krell present barely glanced at the shuttles. They expected hunters returning from the surface, not prey attacking them. The humans moved quickly. They had studied the ship's layout from captured data. They knew where the command center was, where the communication arrays were located, and where the critical systems could be accessed. They split into 3 teams, each with a specific objective. Marcus led the team to the command center. They moved through corridors that were built for 9-foot Krell, making the humans feel small and vulnerable. But they had surprise on their side. The Krell aboard didn't believe humans could be here. It made them careless. The command center was protected by security doors and armed guards. Marcus didn't hesitate. His team used captured Krell weapons, which were designed for larger hands but still functional. The guards fell before they could raise an alarm. Breaking into the command center was harder. The doors required biometric identification. But Sarah's team had anticipated this. They used gel packs containing Krell genetic material to fool the scanners. The doors opened. Inside, a dozen Krell officers turned in shock as humans burst through. The firefight was brief and brutal. Krell were stronger and tougher, but humans were desperate and determined. When the smoke cleared, Marcus stood at the main control console with Sarah racing to access the systems. "I'm in," Sarah said, her fingers flying over the alien interface, accessing their communication arrays, broadcasting on all frequencies, all channels. "Every ship in the system will see this." Marcus activated the visual recording systems. He stood before the main view screen, looking directly at the cameras. Behind him, the command center showed clear signs of the battle. Human fighters stood among dead Krell officers. It was a powerful image. "My name is Marcus Chen," he said clearly. "I'm a human from the colony of New Edmonton. 6 weeks ago, the Krell came to our world and declared it a hunting preserve. They treated us like animals. They hunted us for sport. They thought we were weak. They were wrong." He gestured to the captured command center. "This is the Krell command ship. We are humans. We are standing in the heart of their military operations. We came here not with superior technology or greater strength, but with courage, intelligence, and the refusal to be prey. The Krell believed they were apex predators. We have proven they are not." Marcus's voice hardened. "To every species watching this broadcast, the Krell are not invincible. They can be beaten. They can be afraid. They can be hunted just like they hunt others. And to the Krell government, leave our world. Leave us in peace, or we will continue to show the galaxy that humanity does not surrender. We do not bow. We do not accept being prey. We fight, we win, we survive. The broadcast went out across every channel. Ships from dozens of species received it. News networks across the galaxy picked it up. Within hours, the image of humans standing in a captured Krell command ship was everywhere. The Krell response was immediate and overwhelming. Crothan ordered an assault on the command ship to retake it, but the humans had prepared for this. Sarah's team had planted explosives throughout critical systems. They detonated them remotely as they evacuated, crippling the ship's weapons and propulsion. The shuttles barely escaped, taking fire as they dove back toward the planet's surface. One shuttle was destroyed, killing everyone aboard. The other two crashed in the forest, damaged but intact. Marcus pulled survivors from the wreckage, counting the cost of their victory. 7 volunteers were dead. But the mission had succeeded beyond expectations. The broadcast had changed everything. The Krell could no longer hide what was happening. Their reputation as unstoppable hunters was shattered. Other species began asking questions about Krell practices on other worlds. On the ground, Crothan unleashed his fury. He ordered systematic bombardment of the forest, abandoning any pretense of honor or sporting conduct. The humans retreated into deep caves as the surface burned. It was brutal and terrifying, but it was also proof that the Krell had lost control. Thraxul watched the bombardment with growing horror. He had been taught that Krell were noble, honorable, superior. But here was his war master burning an entire forest to kill cornered prey. There was nothing honorable about this. It was massacre driven by wounded pride. That night, Thraxul made a decision that would mark him as a traitor to his people. He gathered intelligence files, tactical data, and access codes. He loaded them onto a portable device. Then he walked into the forest toward where he knew the humans were hiding. He found Marcus Chen in a cave entrance, weapon raised and ready. Thraxul raised his hands in surrender and spoke in careful English he had been practicing. The galaxy watched as New Edmonton burned. The Krell bombardment continued for 3 days, turning vast sections of forest into scorched wasteland. News ships from a dozen species broadcast the destruction live. What the Krell intended as a demonstration of power became evidence of their desperation. The mighty hunters were using orbital weapons against prey that had captured their command ship. The message was clear. The Krell were losing. Deep underground, Marcus and Sarah interviewed Thraxul while explosions shook dust from the cave ceiling. The young Krell provided detailed intelligence about Krell military operations, weapons capabilities, and most importantly, the political situation within the Empire. The government is divided, Thraxul explained in his improving English. Some want to withdraw and save reputation. Others want total victory to prove Krell's strength. War Master Crothan answers to the military faction. They will not stop until humans are destroyed or Krell are forced to leave. How long can they maintain the bombardment? Sarah asked, taking notes on everything. Not long. Each shot costs energy and resources. They need to save power for ship operations and defenses. Crothan hopes to drive you into the open or force surrender. But I have studied humans. You do not surrender, Marcus smiled grimly. You're learning. What else did you bring us? Thraxul activated his data device, displaying schematics and tactical information, complete layouts of Krell ships, security protocols, communication encryption, weak points in armor and shields, everything I could access. He paused, his 4 eyes meeting Marcus's gaze. I betray my people by giving this to you. But what they do here is wrong. This is not honor. This is murder. Over the next week, the human resistance used Thraxul's intelligence to devastating effect. They launched coordinated attacks on Krell ground positions using captured weapons. They hacked into Krell communications, spreading misinformation and confusion. They sabotaged supply lines and equipment. Every action was recorded and broadcast by the watching news ships. The galactic community began to respond. 3 species filed formal protests against Krell hunting practices. 2 others offered humanitarian aid to the humans, though the Krell blockade prevented direct assistance. Most significantly, several species who had suffered under Krell aggression began sharing their own stories of abuse and exploitation. The Krell Empire found itself on trial in the court of galactic opinion. Their claim to be noble warriors looked hollow when everyone could see them bombing trapped civilians. Their tradition of honor hunting seemed barbaric when compared to human resistance. The political pressure mounted. Inside the Krell government, debates raged. The traditional faction argued for immediate withdrawal to preserve what reputation remained. The military faction, led by Crothan's supporters, insisted that showing weakness now would invite attacks from rival species. The Empire was trapped between bad options, all because of one human colony that refused to die. On New Edmonton, the situation was equally tense. The humans had survived the bombardment by staying deep underground, but they couldn't hide forever. Food was running low. Medical supplies were exhausted. People were injured, sick, and traumatized. Marcus knew they needed something dramatic to break the stalemate. "We need to take the fight to them again," he told his core leadership group. "The orbital attack worked because it was unexpected. We need another move they won't see coming." Sarah had been working on exactly that. Using Thraxul's intelligence and captured Krell technology, she had developed a plan that was even more audacious than the command ship raid. "We're going to take hostages," she announced. "Important ones." The plan was simple in concept but complex in execution. A Krell noble named Vathrok had just arrived with his family, seeking the glory of participating in the final victory over the humans. He brought his mate and 2 juveniles, confident that the military situation was well in hand. He was staying in a luxury facility near the main Krell base, protected by guards and security systems. "We snatched them quietly," Sarah explained. "Use Thraxul to get through security. Take them alive and unharmed. Then we negotiate, not just for our freedom but for guarantees. We force the Krell to admit what they did here was wrong." "They'll never admit that," Tom Rodriguez argued. "It goes against everything they believe." "They will if the alternative is losing one of their high nobles," Marcus said. "And more importantly, if we broadcast the negotiations. Make it public. Force them to answer questions about their hunting practices in front of the whole galaxy." The operation took 2 weeks to plan and execute. Thraxul used his knowledge of Krell security to bypass systems. A small team of humans moved through the night using every trick they had learned. The guards were neutralized quietly. The family was taken without raising an alarm. By the time Crothan realized what happened, the humans were gone with their hostages, deep in cave systems that the Krell couldn't navigate effectively. And the demands were already broadcasting across the galaxy. The humans didn't ask for much. They wanted the Krell to leave New Edmonton immediately. They wanted formal recognition of human rights as a sentient species. They wanted the Krell government to acknowledge that sport hunting of sentient beings was wrong. And they wanted protection guarantees that prevented future attacks. The Krell response was fury and threats. Crothan swore to execute every human on the planet if the hostages were harmed. But the humans had learned to use public opinion as a weapon. Every threat Crothan made was broadcast. Every aggressive action was recorded. The Krell looked like bullies and barbarians while the humans appeared as desperate survivors fighting for basic rights. Other species began actively supporting the humans. Ships arrived carrying supplies that were dropped from orbit in areas the Krell couldn't intercept. Diplomatic pressure increased. 3 species threatened to cut trade relations with the Krell Empire if the situation wasn't resolved peacefully. In the caves, Marcus met daily with the hostages. Vathrok was defiant at first, demanding release and threatening terrible vengeance. But as days passed and he watched the humans, his attitude shifted. He saw that the humans weren't mindless prey. They were organized, intelligent, and driven by principles rather than just survival instinct. "Why do you fight so hard?" Vathrok asked one evening. "You cannot win total victory. Even if we leave, you are still weaker than Krell. Why not accept your place?" Marcus sat down across from the large alien. "Because our place is what we make it, not what others decide for us. Humans don't accept that strength determines worth. We believe every thinking being deserves respect and freedom. Your people came to hunt us like animals. We proved we're not animals. We're people, and people don't surrender their right to exist." Vathrok was quiet for a long time. "I have hunted on many worlds. I never thought about the prey having thoughts like this. Having philosophy. Having determination. That's why you're losing here," Sarah added, entering the conversation. "You saw us as prey because we didn't have your strength or technology. You never considered that intelligence, creativity, and will matter more than physical power. Humans conquered our world not because we were the strongest species, but because we could think, plan, and work together. We took those same qualities to the stars, and now we're using them against you." The negotiations dragged on for 3 weeks. The Krell government was paralyzed by internal conflict. The military faction wanted to assault the caves and rescue the hostages by force, but the terrain made that nearly impossible. The traditional faction argued for compromise, but admitting fault went against centuries of Krell pride. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. An elder Krell stateswoman named Starakel, who had opposed the hunting preserves from the beginning, gave a public address that was broadcast across the empire. "We pride ourselves on honor," she said, "but there is no honor in what happened at New Edmonton. We treated sentient beings as prey. We ignored their pleas for peace. We responded to their resistance with overwhelming force. This is not the behavior of a noble species. This is the behavior of bullies and cowards." Her words caused outrage among traditional Krell, but they resonated with younger generations who had been watching the broadcasts. Protests began in Krell cities. Students questioned their teachers about the morality of hunting preserves. The comfortable certainty of Krell superiority was cracking. Thraxul watched these developments with amazement. "I caused this," he said to Marcus. "By defecting. By helping you, I made my people question everything." "You gave them permission to ask questions they already had," Marcus corrected. "Change was coming. You just accelerated it." Finally, after 43 days of captivity, the Krell government agreed to negotiate seriously. Not with Crothan, who was recalled in disgrace, but with a diplomatic team led by Starakel. The negotiations were broadcast live across the galaxy. The humans presented their demands clearly and firmly. They wanted more than just freedom for New Edmonton. They wanted guarantees for all human colonies. They wanted the Krell to dismantle their hunting preserve system. They wanted formal apologies and reparations. The Krell delegation tried to negotiate down the demands, but the humans had leverage. They had the hostages. They had galactic public opinion. They had proven they could fight back effectively. 6 months after the Krell withdrew from New Edmonton, Marcus Chen stood before the Galactic Council as an official representative of humanity. The massive chamber held delegates from 47 species, all watching the human with varying degrees of curiosity, respect, or skepticism. 6 months ago, humans were barely known in galactic politics. Now everyone knew their name. The chamber was designed for beings much larger than humans. Marcus felt small at the speaking platform, but he no longer equated size with power. The events on New Edmonton had taught him that determination and intelligence mattered more than physical strength. He carried that confidence as he began his address. 6 months ago, my people faced extinction. The Krell came to our world and declared us prey. They hunted us for entertainment. They expected us to die quietly, to accept our fate as the weak accepting the strong. But humanity has never accepted that strength alone determines worth. We fought back. We survived. And in surviving, we taught the galaxy an important lesson. Sentient beings are not prey. We are equals, regardless of our physical differences. The chamber murmured with various reactions. Some species had suffered under Krell aggression and appreciated humanity's victory. Others worried about the implications of prey fighting back against traditional predators. The Galactic Order was built on certain assumptions about power and hierarchy. Humans had challenged those assumptions. Back on New Edmonton, life slowly returned to normal, though nothing would truly be the same. The colony had grown from 50,000 survivors to nearly 80,000. New immigrants arrived from Earth and other human colonies, drawn by the story of resistance. New Edmonton had become a symbol of human determination. Sarah Okonkwo worked in a new research facility, studying xenobiology and interspecies relations. Her work during the crisis had made her famous across human space and beyond. Universities from a dozen species requested her papers on Krell psychology and predator-prey dynamics. She had job offers from prestigious institutions, but she chose to stay on New Edmonton. "This is where everything changed," she told visitors. "This is where we proved humanity's place in the galaxy. I need to be here to document what comes next." What came next was complicated. The Krell had officially closed their hunting preserves and issued formal apologies, but changing a culture took time. Many Krell still believed in their inherent superiority. They viewed the New Edmonton incident as an aberration, a fluke caused by incompetent hunters rather than genuine human capability. But younger Krell, influenced by Thraxul's defection and the broadcast from New Edmonton, began questioning traditional values. They studied human history and were amazed by what they found. A species that had been primitive only centuries ago had developed technology, philosophy, and art that rivaled any in the galaxy. Humans had overcome every obstacle through adaptation and persistence. Thraxul became a controversial figure in Krell society. To traditionalists, he was a traitor who betrayed his species for prey animals. To reformers, he was a hero who had the courage to acknowledge truth. He received death threats regularly, but also letters of support from young Krell who wanted change. On New Edmonton, Thraxul worked as a liaison between humans and Krell, helping to build understanding between species. He taught classes on Krell culture at the rebuilt university. He helped businesses navigate Krell trade regulations, and he trained human security forces on Krell tactics, ensuring that humanity would never be unprepared again. "I live in two worlds," Thraxul told a journalist interviewing him for a galactic news program. "I am Krell by birth, but human by choice. My people taught me that strength makes right. Humans taught me that right makes strength. I cannot return to believing the first truth after learning the second." The political consequences rippled through the galaxy. 3 species that had submitted to Krell dominance began asserting their independence. They cited New Edmonton as proof that physical power didn't guarantee victory. The Krell Empire found its influence declining as former subjects demanded renegotiated treaties and equal partnerships. Other predator species watched nervously. If prey species started fighting back, the entire galactic power structure could collapse. Some species proposed restrictions on prey species accessing military technology. Others suggested creating a formal hierarchy system to prevent future conflicts. Humanity rejected all such proposals. Marcus made this clear in his speech to the Galactic Council. "We will not accept second-class status. We will not allow ourselves to be categorized as prey. Humanity demands recognition as equals with full rights and protections. We have proven our capability to defend ourselves. We have proven our intelligence and determination. Any species that treats humans as prey will face the same response the Krell faced. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The speech was controversial but effective. Several species formally recognized human rights and established diplomatic relations. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges began. Humanity was no longer an isolated newcomer, but an active participant in galactic civilization. Tom Rodriguez, who had been a simple farmer before the crisis, now served as New Edmonton's security chief. He oversaw the training of new defense forces and the construction of military installations. New Edmonton would never be defenseless again. He worked closely with human fleet commanders to ensure that any future threat could be met with overwhelming force. "We learned a hard lesson," Tom told his trainees. "Being peaceful doesn't mean being weak. We tried to live quietly and predators came for us. Now we're strong enough that no one will try that again. But we're also smart enough to not become the bullies ourselves. We defend, we don't conquer." Lisa Tanaka became a military instructor, teaching guerrilla warfare tactics to human forces across the colonies. Her experiences during the resistance made her an expert on asymmetric warfare. Military academies from Earth requested her presence, but she chose to stay on New Edmonton, training the next generation of defenders. "People need to understand what we did here," Lisa explained. "We didn't win through superior technology or strength. We won through intelligence, creativity, and refusing to surrender. Those are humanity's real weapons. We need to keep teaching that, or we'll forget what makes us dangerous." The memorial to those who died during the hunt became a pilgrimage site. 732 names were carved into a wall of stone, taken from the caves where survivors had hidden. Visitors from across the galaxy came to pay respects and learn the story. The memorial's inscription was simple but powerful. "They came to hunt us. We refused to be prey. We survived. We remember." Marcus visited the memorial regularly. He knew many of the names personally. Friends, neighbors, fellow fighters. The cost of survival had been high. Some nights he still dreamed of the forest, of desperate battles and terrible choices. But he also dreamed of the moment the Krell ships left orbit, of victory earned through determination. The New Edmonton incident changed galactic politics permanently. The traditional assumption that physical power determined hierarchy was questioned. Species began evaluating each other based on capability and determination rather than size and strength. The term prey species fell out of favor, replaced by more neutral language. The Krell Empire struggled with its new reality. Younger generations, influenced by reformers like Tharakel and inspired by Thraxul's courage, pushed for cultural changes. The traditional honor system was re-examined. Questions arose about what true honor meant. Was it strength dominating weakness, or was it respecting the rights of others regardless of power differences? An unexpected friendship developed between Marcus and Vathrock, the noble whose capture had helped end the crisis. After returning to Krell space, Vathrock became an advocate for reform. He spoke publicly about his time as a hostage, describing how he had learned to see humans as people rather than prey. "I watched them," Vathrock told a Krell audience. "I saw their organization, their compassion for each other, their determination to survive. These were not prey behaviors. These were the behaviors of a people fighting for their existence. And they won. Not through our rules, but through their own methods. That victory demands respect." The Joint Krell-Human Council, established by the peace agreement, met quarterly to address ongoing issues. It was often contentious. Old prejudices and resentments didn't disappear overnight, but it provided a forum for dialogue and conflict resolution. Slowly, painfully, both species learned to work together. Sarah's research produced groundbreaking insights into interspecies relations. She developed frameworks for understanding cultural differences and preventing conflicts based on biological assumptions. Her work became required reading at diplomatic academies across the galaxy. "The Krell weren't evil," Sarah wrote in her most famous paper. "They were operating from a worldview shaped by their evolution as apex predators. They genuinely believed strength determined worth because that's how their society functioned for thousands of years. Humans challenged that worldview not through philosophy but through action. We proved that other qualities matter just as much as physical power. That's the real victory of New Edmonton." As Marcus concluded his speech to the Galactic Council, he looked around the chamber at the assembled species.